Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. And everyone, hey, welcome into the program. So today on the show, we have, in the second part of the show, we will have computer and technology news, where we cover everything from current events, topics, new releases, products, just anything and everything that is new. That's going to be the segment for you. So you definitely want to check that out. But in the first part of the program, we will have an interview, and that's going to be none other than the CEO of Cabin Systems North America, though soon to be known as Liquid Avatar, Mr. David Lucatch, and we'll introduce him in just a moment here, where, we're going to be talking all about, digital identity and what does it mean to really be you online, because, there's a lot of people, I'm sure, that would love to, kind of share that identity with you. Now, with that being said, before we get into that, computeramerica.com, that's where you'll find everything, including past shows, future shows, all the shows, as well as the show rebroadcast in podcast form. If you can't catch us live here on the radio, then that's okay, computeramerica.com. And also on the right side of the page for the entire month of February, we're coming up to the end here, about 250,000 entries into our giveaway. But everyone, we're celebrating 30 years of Computer America. So to do that, again, we're doing a giveaway, and it's completely free to enter. We recommend that you do. We're giving away hundreds of prizes, and thank you so much. Now, with all that being said, I think that's it for the morning announcements. Let's go ahead, get into this interview with our guest, and hey, just have fun with it. So as I said before, if you're watching the video portion, we're going to go ahead and throw this up here. Everyone, Cabin Systems North America, it's been about a year since we had them on, and it looks like, hey, a lot of big changes. Obviously, so much more has been going online, and, being able to identify you as an individual online has never been more important, with so much, let's face it, things like stimulus, job and work and all that kind of thing. Very, very important processes need to make sure that, hey, the right person is the right person. So to explain it all to us and how Liquid Avatar can help with that, David, welcome back onto Computer America. How you doing?
Doing great. Great to be here, Ben. Thanks very much.
And I'm happy to have you on, and obviously, I think, something that we should kind of get out of the way at the beginning is this transition from Cabin Systems North America to Liquid Avatar, and also a bit of background on yourself and the company.
Well, that's great. Cabin Systems North America, or our parent company, Cabin in general, is changing its name to Liquid Avatar. That is our primary product, and for those that want to see something about Liquid Avatar, obviously they can go to our website at liquidavatar.com. Liquid Avatar, empowers users to manage and control their digital identity, and that was a long time in coming. I mean, when the internet first started, identity really wasn't a consideration because the technology required to do that wasn't there. I started in the internet business, in the payment sector, helping create the protocols for Canadians to use their credit cards online or debit cards online, and also did some AI, machine learning, some entertainment projects, and found myself in around 2017 looking at the cryptocurrency market, and really wanted to focus on where liquidity and compliance was going. And ultimately that led us to where we are today with Liquid Avatar. And we're very excited to show the world your digital self, as we might put it.
Yeah, and I can completely understand that, because your identity offline is, like we have here in, kind of in the material. But talk about the difference between online identity and offline identity, because kind of verifying that and proving that in person, that's never really been a concern. But online, it's been given that, I was raised on never trust anyone or anything online. And it looks like you're trying to flip that, the conventional logic of you never know who you're talking to online, but you're trying to flip that.
Well, that's true, Ben. Let me ask a question. Do you ever buy anything online?
All the time.
Right. Do you use passwords and usernames online?
Of course.
Right. So then you do trust some people online, right? So that's sort of the way that we all end up. But when you think about it, when I leave the house, generally when the pandemic isn't here, I carry at least two things. I carry a wallet and I carry a keyring. Now, everybody knows I'm a comic book fan, so both of these are Spider-Man related. In my wallet, I have credentials that prove who I am. If I walk into a liquor store, I can prove my identity. And really, am I really proving my identity? I show my driver's license and the person looks at me and says, you match, here you go. And when I use my keys, I'm accessing, valuables. So the same is true online. When we go online, we use usernames and passwords and we use our cards online, but does anybody really know that it's really us? We have that information, but is it really us? So what we're doing is we're working with a lot of great minds and great people. We belong to the Trust Over IP Foundation, which is trustoverip.org, with some very like-minded individuals. And Liquid Avatar is sort of that pill that you might feed a small animal. And if you've ever done that before, you know that it's always a challenge trying to get your cat or your dog to take a pill. And digital identity is a change, so it's a pill. And we think of Liquid Avatar and the services we're offering as sort of peanut butter around that pill. So what we're doing is we're ensuring that people can effectively control, manage, create their digital identity using fun and engaging services. And I want to represent myself as a really cool soccer player. I want to represent myself in particular ways. I'm also not just a single entity online. I might be a gamer. I might be a social media activist. I might be I might go to school online. I might work online. So all these are different facets of our personality. And Liquid Avatar allows you to control what people see by what you share online in each of those personalities. So it really is taking the whole you and creating digital parts of it. And I think further to add to that, digital identity, very simply put, is probably the fourth leg of a chair, the internet chair, where we have search as one leg, browsers as another leg, communication as another leg, and now digital identity. So those four things make up our digital presence.
Right. And digital identity, of course, ties in so closely, I think, with, kind of personal data, which we hear so often about. Right. And so many companies have, let's face it, there are multiple billion-dollar companies that have made themselves off of people's digital identity. And exactly. What you are, trying to introduce here, I think, is kind of a fun and almost like an introductory way that people can start to take control of their digital identity, because it's always been, your examples earlier of, do you buy online, that kind of thing, saying that you obviously trust someone. I don't really, but to use their service, I'm forced to, kind of deal. Exactly. And I really, as an average consumer, obviously for the show, I know a little bit more than the average person. I recognize that, but I know that I'm giving away a lot, but I also don't know exactly what I'm giving away. Does your service help to If not, kind of prevent what you share and, let you know, do you at least shine a light on what it is you're sharing and with whom you're sharing it with?
I think that's a very good point. The answer is we do, because at the end of the day, you're going to be able to control what information and credentials you present. So I don't give my driver's license to everyone. I just give it to those that request it and I believe are worthy of receiving it. That information. So it's the same with any information online, and regulations are changing where consumers are actually in control of that data. But the challenge is, how do you manage that data? How do you manage all this information? And Liquid Avatar provides you that ability to compartmentalize it. What's really important is it's yours. We can never sell or rent it. We don't own it. We can't rent it. But we can help you manage it. And we do that through biometric control. So we don't have access to your data. You only have access to your data through your biometrics. And what's really unique about Liquid Avatar is no matter how many usernames and passwords or avatars you have, it's one user and one account. So there's no fakes, no bots, and everybody's verified when they come in. And over time, you can increase that verification and that security and that privacy. But it's all about allowing you to manage what you need to manage to make smart, educated decisions.
That kind of answers my next question there, because I was thinking that with this idea of presenting multiple or different avatars to people, that soon you wouldn't know exactly what. Well, it's not about knowing who you're dealing with, but it's more about convenience, because maybe your shopping habits wouldn't be convenient for one avatar, but they would be for another. And that interplay, I was wondering if there was any any kind of sharing or anything like that. But I guess having one account with multiple avatars would let you, I guess, still have that convenience without completely segmenting, and it'd be safer for sure. But I think convenience is what people are really after nowadays, right?
Agreed. It's think of it sort of as a funnel, right? It's coming down a funnel. You've got all these pieces at the top and it funnels down to one account. I think that's really important. I mean, when you think about a marketer on the other side of the fence that really wants to reach a known user, when they use certain social media platforms or certain advertising platforms, they don't know who's real, who's not real. There's a lot of spillage and breakage, and there's a lot of issues that go on. What we do is we can work with marketers to present offers inside our app that fit the demographics of the users that are looking at them, because we know you're a known user, one account, and you might give up a little bit of permission to get a whole lot of value. And for marketers, it's so much better because I can give you a better deal because I know that I'm dealing with real people who would potentially like my product. I'm not searching through groups, and I know that people are real, and that's a real important factor. And at the same time, as a user, I can determine who sees what, when, and how in different settings.
So, and I got to say that your background, seeing what was happening with cryptocurrency, and I'm sure the blockchain and all that good stuff, there's a lot going on there in terms of like public keys, private keys, and it's very, well, I don't say very, but it's kind of technical. And when you first explain it to people, it's not intuitive, and it does get better once you understand how this idea of handshaking behind the scenes and the whole blockchain kind of works. But you've decided to I guess my question is, why the avatars, why the looks, why something that looks more, I guess, kind of accessible, almost like a Facebook minigame kind of deal? Why something like that over public private keys and accounts and passwords and master passwords? Sure. Why did you decide avatars over something a little bit more technical?
Well, there's two good pieces to that answer, I hope, to the question, our answer. And the first one will be, when I get in a car, I'm not necessarily interested in how the engine works. I just want to get in a car and drive. So do you really need to know about public and private keys? Do you really need to know about the blockchain? You just want to get in and use a product, number one. Number two is at the end of the day, our services are all cloud-based. They're not edge-based. And for those that don't know the difference, an edge-based would be a device-based wallet where you have to have a lot more control over that wallet, because if your device, like a phone, got compromised, stolen, damaged, you could lose everything. So we're all cloud-based with biometrics. So the whole idea was to make it fun, engaging, and simple while still maintaining a very strong utilitarian feature set underneath everything. So underneath the, that 5% of the iceberg that you're looking at with liquid avatars is 95% of the technology that powers everything. And I think from a humanistic standpoint, for those of us who are fans and gamers, we're really trying to get closer and closer to Ready Player One, where we can, we want to be on the fun side of the event, even though the technical side is so pervasive. Why does someone need to know how the engine works if they want to drive a car?
No, and that makes perfect sense. And I think a lot of, and when I said it looks, kind of like something that would be a Facebook game, I meant that as something that is very accessible that you can jump into. Mm-hmm. And I think you've made the value proposition of, kind of why you would want to use a liquid avatar, very apparent. Mm-hmm. But now comes the other side, which is, mm-hmm. businesses accepting or being able to recognize the value in doing this, as opposed to just throwing a bunch of cookies on your computer and making you make an account and sharing your email and all that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. What does this benefit businesses? Is it strictly about taking control back for consumers? Mm-hmm. Yeah, how does this play on the corporate side?
So that's a really, really good segue into what I would call a trusted triangle. I'm going to show this little triangle, and I'm going to say, when I walk into a store like a Walmart and I make a purchase, at the top is me, and on one side would be using a credit or debit card, swiping it and using it, and the other side would be my issuer, the bank, right? And I create this relationship with, and the card goes through the system, asks me if I'm me, and I sign or use a PIN, and I get my transaction. Using verifiable credentials, which is the underpinning utility of liquid avatars, sharing that information through verifiable credentials is the same situation. The most important part of that triangle to us is that user. They still need a verifier, so I want to get into an event, so I have to show a credential. That credential is going to be in my wallet, and that wallet's going to be connected to Liquid Avatar, so I can find that credential very quickly, and I can hand it over to the verifier, which then proves that my driver's license was issued by the province or the state. So it's really important to have a great, easy, accessible way to organize all this information. And then how do I organize my passwords? Do I need to have passwords if I have facial recognition? There's all these different factors that go into it. Again, that 95% below. So we're looking at all three parts of that triangle. We need to look at the consumer or the holder. We need to look at the venue or the verifier. And then we need to look at how to support the issuer, like a government or a bank. But without supporting the holder, the consumer, which everybody seems to forget in the equation, the entire system collapses. So we've taken a very strong position of being consumer first. And I should mention, Ben, that Liquid Avatar's product and services are free of charge. We do not charge the consumer anything to use them.
Makes you ask the question, how do you make money? Because if you're not collecting people's data and selling it, where do you make your money?
We don't have to sell data. Because think of I won't mention the name, but think of a virtual hotel chain, right? Mm-hmm. That we all know who they are. They need to know that the user is who they say they are, and if they're willing to pay our users to connect their verifiable identity credential to that virtual hotelier, then they will likely give that consumer a value, and they will pay us a fee to do that. So we can rely on the economics of transaction and marketing to pay the freight on this without giving up data. I think it's a very, very simple premise. We have over 300, almost 400 now, major vendors involved, and we're hearing from people daily saying, if you're creating known users, how can we present our services to them so that we can create a more effective relationship with our potential customers and economically and efficiently work with them.
And then, of course, I also saw here that there's microtransactions too, where you get basic avatars, free avatars, and like any good game, there's of course something there that you can, hey, if you're investing all this time and energy into it, you can invest a little bit more into the system. So makes perfect
Well, I was
sense.
just going to comment there, Ben, but there are thousands and thousands of free combinations. You never have to go to the Liquid Avatar Marketplace and buy anything.
Right.
But as you said, if you're inclined, we have major pop artists, comic book artists, emerging artists, anime artists that are creating these really cool avatars that you can own and will eventually be able to buy to trade and sell. So, yeah, somebody can do that. So there are going to be microtransactions. We are looking at the NFT market. We're looking at all kinds of different opportunities to create revenue, but not at the expense of the consumer having a full-fledged, not a freemium, not a premium, but have the full-fledged service at no cost.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. This is all cosmetic. Obviously, the basis of it is still fully functional and, all that good stuff. So there's that. And of course, to tie it into current events, COVID, we've been talking about here in the United States that, the vaccinations are rolling out at a very, very good speed over the last month or two. And I guess one of the big issues when it comes to kind of like a state by state problem with this vaccine rollout is getting people verified, saying that yes, you're eligible. You're a person who's at high risk. You're in this location, so on and so forth. Coordinating this effort seems to be a real sticking point for government agencies, these websites that they set up, really in just a couple of weeks that are quickly overloaded and, you have to create usernames. I could go on. How do you think something like Liquid Avatar could help in verifying and getting people organized and, something like, let's say, a vaccine distribution out?
Well, I think Liquid Avatar would actually be better on the other side of the vaccination distribution. We're not really looking at that side of the fence so much as we're looking at once you have the vaccination, how can you prove that you've had the vaccination?
Oh.
Because we're seeing a lot of fake credentials starting to float in the marketplace, fake testing. How can we verify that once you've had your credential, that you're going to be safe to be around others? Because when I get on a airplane or I get on a bus or a train or I'm in a crowded room, I want to know that everyone is safe. So we're working with lab partners and organizations like Trust Over IP and the Good Health Pass and other organizations to ensure that people will have the credentials to prove they've been vaccinated. I think that is the most important part, but that leads into other credentials as time goes on. Do you have your immunizations that you need to go to school or go or travel? There's lots of things that are not invasive because a Verify will ask you to present that credential. It'll be your choice whether you give that credential up. They won't automatically have it. So you are in control of that data. But I think the most important part in this ecosystem is proving that those that haven't had the the vaccination can't say that they have.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I knew that would be an issue going forward because once I heard that people were mainly in Florida, of all places, I recall a story about a woman who brought in, actually I think it was a couple who said that they had a therapy python that they were trying to bring into a restaurant, and they were using fake credentials to kind of say that this was a therapy animal. And I knew, people are going to do weird things and it's not going to be a great system. So that's a great way to kind of approach it is, kind of have that link to an individual and like you said, share the information that you don't want to, but at the same time, easily be able to and quickly verify that this person has this credential. And of course, all of this, kind of rolls it into, I guess, another topic, like you said way at the beginning, about paying for things online, shopping online. Obviously, with the pandemic, people have been doing that exponentially more. Would something like Liquid Avatar help in terms of protecting your identity and, more importantly, protecting your payment information, things like that? Because there are other services out there that claim to, I guess, kind of share an overlap with that. And I'm wondering if you would kind of nip that in the bud before it even becomes a problem.
Well, again, Liquid Avatar, while providing certain credentials to individuals, is more of a management system. So if you have credentials from others, we'll help you organize that so that you can get to them easily and effectively. Like what happens when you have 1,000 credentials or 500 credentials or 200 credentials? We'll help you organize those. They won't be Liquid Avatar credentials, but you'll use the Liquid Avatar platform to organize those credentials. When it comes to e-commerce, globally, identity fraud is about a $30 billion problem. And while credit card companies, by and large, say don't worry about it, if someone steals your information or does a bad transaction, you don't have to pay for it. I would argue that a lot of those fees are buried inside of your interest payments and service fees and annual fees. So if we can, as a society, reduce those fees by using verifiable credentials, that when I make a transaction, it pings me, I answer with my face and says, "Yep, that's me. I'm making that transaction right now." I can't give a family member my card. I can't do anything, and all of a sudden, all those fake transactions start to drop, like a stone.
Mhm.
And so the credit card companies and the banks become more efficient. And by and large, I think either they will pass a lot of those savings along, or they'll be forced to pass those savings along to consumers.
Yeah, no, makes perfect sense. And I have to, kind of ask this question when it comes to, the cloud access and that kind of thing. Let's say someone has fully invested themselves into Liquid Avatar to manage all of their payment credential, ID, all that kind of thing. And you've already mentioned that a lot of this is stored on the cloud, and that's definitely not a bad thing, considering that for security reasons that can definitely be helpful. And of course, the very famous story about a gentleman who lost, what was it, like $60 million worth of Bitcoin off of his hard drive buried somewhere in a landfill. Things like that just won't happen if it's stored in the cloud. But the other side to this is what happens when someone does not have internet access. Is there anything someone can do client side that would get them to a place that they can, do basic transactions or pay for things? Or is Liquid Avatar meant to have internet access and that's kind of the end of it?
That's pretty much the end of it. This is a cloud-based service that uses verifiable credentials that are supported by the blockchain and trusted security. So unfortunately, it is an internet-based service.
Gotcha. No, that's definitely good to know. So with that being said, looking through some of our other questions here, we also wanted to talk about, kind of a sovereign wallet and this idea of a sovereign wallet. I think people have gotten very familiar with Apple Wallet, Google Wallet, these different services that help manage their credentials within, kind of their devices. But you have something a little bit different. How does yours operate?
Well, again, I think I mentioned earlier something called an edge wallet, which is device driven, right? And so the Google and Apple wallets are edge wallets. They're local on your phones, and I'm not taking anything away for the power of these wallets because they're amazing, but hardware and software wallet providers can determine what you can and cannot put inside that wallet. Again, if I go back to my wallet. I determine what goes in that wallet, self-sovereign. I say I want this in my wallet, or I want this on my platform, or I want certain keys on my key ring. That, though, I make those decisions as an individual. That's a self-sovereign property. So we're into what's notably to be self-sovereign. But again, we do appreciate and realize that some people will keep certain credentials inside an Apple or Google wallet. And we're looking at ways at Liquid Avatar to help them manage those better.
Gotcha. So to start wrapping this interview, because I know that we're on a tight schedule here, but I wanted to, kind of say two things. One, what is next for Liquid Avatar? Because obviously building up the ecosystem, I'm sure, is very, very important. And, kind of further refining the technologies behind this is going to be good. And then, so what's in the future, and where can people go to find out more information?
Well, I'll do it in reverse. The best place to go find out more information is www.liquidavatar.com, and we're available on the Apple Store and Google Play as a download. What's really important is we launched last week, so February 18th, we launched the foundational level of Liquid Avatar. Now, this is, again, if you're going to build a house, you're not going to start with the second floor or interior design. So we've started with the foundational level. Over the next few months, on a monthly basis, we'll be bringing out more and more feature sets. And over time, those feature sets will include augmented reality. They'll include more control over your Liquid avatars, multiple languages, all the feature sets that you would think need to be in a platform that is going to help you manage online life, for lack of anything better. So we're doing a lot of different components that will be added over the next few months. So the horizon for us long term is that we just never stop adding, and giving you more control over your data and your credentials is our ultimate goal. And so we'll be adding more and more services as we go along.
Gotcha. And of course, everyone, if you want to check it out for yourself, liquidavatar.com. We'll have a link in the show notes over at computeramerica.com. And David, I got to say, thank you so much for coming on the show. I recall this being a very fun idea, and it looks like you've certainly ran with it. And hey, you're developing it in good time. So we're looking forward to another update. And in the meantime, everyone, once again, Liquid Avatar. David, I'll let you go now. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Ben. Great to be here.
Yeah, our pleasure. So everyone, we're going to go ahead and kind of sign off here, and we're going to end the Zoom call. So our guests, hey, we're going to be very rude, but everyone, let's go ahead and get started with computer and technology news. And that's brought to you by Computer America. Here we go. Well, everyone, and so I think that for our next segment, we're going to do computer and technology news. We have a ton of different articles that we can pull from, and yeah, we're going to try to keep them as relevant as possible, because obviously the weekend just happened and there's a lot of stories on the other end of that. But yeah, let's go ahead and get talking about this. And once again, thank you to our guest, Liquid Avatar, for joining us. So with that being said, let's go ahead and okay, how about okay, a couple of these are pretty interesting, and I'm sorry, I'm still looking for these. Okay, how about we start here? This is what you don't want to hear from your provider. Well, your software provider, and especially for something as important as, well, prisons. And check this one out. A software bug reportedly kept Arizona inmates jailed past release dates. A state law was updated in 2018, but the state's software suite still has not been updated. And this is one of those rare times, I'll say it, this is one of those rare times where technology is lagging behind policy. That's pretty crazy. So the employees for the Arizona Department of Corrections have known about the bug since 2019, and that's what an NPR affiliate KJZZ reported. This coming to us from Ars Technica, saying that the flaw follows a change to state law that the software simply cannot handle and has not been updated to deal with. Arizona has one of the highest imprisonment rates in the country, with drug possession convictions being one of the highest drivers behind the numbers. An amendment to Arizona state law in 2019 created a mechanism through which inmates convicted of certain nonviolent drug offenses can earn credit towards early release. Eligible inmates who complete a program such as GED equivalent or substance abuse treatment while in prison can earn 3 days credit for every 7 days served and shorten the length to 70% of their assigned sentence. So yeah, that means 30% time off, let's say 10 years, 7 years served, and you're good to go. A whole 3 years. That's quite a bit. Now, the Arizona Departments of Corrections own FAQ about the program specifies that neither inmates nor their families should contact anyone to request an eligibility review, saying that this is done automatically based on a system programming which generates a list for time comp, and that the reviews are being completed based on the projected earliest release dates. And according to a whistleblower, however, the system cannot identify eligible participants and still does not make those calculations. And going into what would be required for this kind of system, I am by no means an expert on programming, but I would assume that you have a set number of charges that a person can be, kind of convicted with. And if they said nonviolent drug offense, there must be a certain amount of offenses that could qualify for that role. And then from those, you take their total. And to me, it would be something as simple as like a checkbox saying that this person is eligible for this or not. And then, what programs have they completed? And you put in the set number of programs, because they gave a couple, including GED equivalent or substance abuse treatment. And, kind of say that have they applied and have they, kind of completed these, not systems, completed these exercises. And it seems like it would not be that hard of a thing to do. But turns out for this software manufacturer, they just haven't been able to figure it out. Now, they said that we knew from day one this wasn't going to work, a source in the Department of Corrections told KJZZ. When they approved that bill, we looked at it and said, oh no. Although they did not say no, they said a word I cannot say. Now, the whistleblowers say that they began making repeated internal warnings to the department's IT officials in 2019, and they had a bug report detailing how the software, called ACIS, fails to keep up with the law. And they said that currently the calculation is not in ACIS at all. ACIS can calculate 1 earned credit for every 6 days served, but this is a new calculation. So they had one in there every 6 days. Every 6 days served, 1 earned credit, as opposed to 7 days served, 3 earned credit. Weird. So they said that they were aware of the problem. The data is being calculated manually and then entered into the system, a spokesperson told the NPR affiliate, and that they have identified at least 733 inmates who are eligible to take part in the early release program, but are not yet enrolled. Oh, that's so disheartening to hear that it's just a software glitch, I guess, is a way that you could put it, just not working right. Now, they said that in one instance there was a disciplinary action erroneously entered on an inmate's record, but there's no way to back it out. So that guy's been punished and he wasn't able to make a phone call for 30 days. Those are the kinds of things that eat at you every day. And they're talking about some of the other issues with the software. Much like contracting anything, never go with the lowest estimate. But it seems like this prison certainly did. So with that being said, researchers in 2018 analyzed the software and found that groups of random amateurs had equal accuracy when projecting suspects' reoffense rates. Both people and algorithms were wrong about a third of the time. So that's also, again, the thinking of this idea that software is going to lead us out of this idea of such a rigged system when it comes to the American justice system and, kind of people who offend and reoffend and who are going to reoffend. We're not there yet. It's getting better. It's definitely an area worth exploring, but it's not there yet. So there you go. That's our first story. Our second story that we're going to go ahead and cover, 2 phone ones. And this one's different because, hey, times are different, but for the first time, Apple beats Samsung in phone sales for the first time since 2016. It's saying that Apple sold almost 80 million phones in Q4 2020. And I think what it took to accomplish this was the holy grail of new updates and new technology with the iPhone 12. It sold better. I mean, it was what they called like a super cycle. The cameras are better. Almost everything was better about this thing. The processors were better. And on top of that, it hit kind of this 2-year mark that, people attribute to upgrading their phones. So it was a nice little perfect storm for Apple. And then on top of that, it was a time that people pulled back and didn't spend as much. So if you weren't completely sold on a new phone, you probably held off because, hey, COVID has been so crazy of a year. That meant that just under 80 million iPhones were sold 79.94 million iPhones were sold during the Q4 2020, so just in 3 months, and that's compared to Samsung managing to sell 62 million. Now, with that being said, this victory for Apple happened amid a general decline in smartphone market. Overall smartphone sales declined 12.5% in 2020 and 5.4% in the fourth quarter. Like I said, if you weren't completely sold on getting a new phone, then a lot of people most likely held off. Now, Samsung saw an overall decline in smartphone sales throughout 2020 of 14.6%, and the company still remains the top smartphone seller across the year. And with that being said, Gartner notes that Samsung is facing fierce competition in many markets from Xiaomi, Oppo, OPPO, and Vivo, all of which grew last year. At the same time, Huawei said that the biggest sales drop of the year, where sales fell 24%. There you go. And they say that Gupta said that 2021 smartphone sales will be driven by adoption of 5G phones outside of China, and that's pretty hard to do when China and India are having such a feud, and India is seen as one of the biggest upcoming markets for smartphone sales and so many other markets that, yeah, Huawei is just really not welcome currently in India. So you can see how that happens. Not all iPhone 12 models sold equally. And of course, as Ars Technica reported earlier, saying that the iPhone 12 mini moved considerably fewer units than the iPhone 12 or even 12 Pro. Bad news for lovers of small phones. Nonetheless, some analysts and others predict that the mini size will return in the iPhone 13 lineup later this year. Let's face it, the iPhone 12 mini was not meant for really an American market. Sure, it was sold and marketed to it, but in reality, it was made for other markets, including places like India and China, places that, a $1,400 phone is just too much. It's just too much for people. But, an iPhone within the ecosystem that sells for like $600, that's a much easier ask. You don't get as much, and clearly there's a very, very big difference between the minis and the regular lineup. But hey, it's something that gets their foot in the door. So, the iPhone mini selling less than the other units, I'm not shocked. But the iPhone ecosystem has not really been embraced outside the United States like some. Well, let's face it, like Android has. So now, moving from phone to phone, Huawei, which is not going to make it here in the United States anytime soon. But check it out. They have a couple of cool new phones here, including a foldable phone. And a completely seamless foldable screen. So a rear display, actually I think two rear displays and I take that back. One rear, almost like front-facing display. Think of it like a cover of a book, where the front cover is a display. Open it up to, a full-fledged, seamless, bendable display. And then on the back side, no display. That has your camera and everything else, and your sensors and your flash. So 3 displays in one, or I guess 2. And they're saying that this comes at a pretty high price, saying that it's a $2,800 phone. $2,800. That's a big ask, especially considering that the Galaxy Fold 2 is just $2,000. $2,000, by the way, is enough for a very high-end laptop, and $2,800 gets you a really good computer. It's hard to imagine that anyone buys this thinking that they're getting a good deal. You are clearly paying for a lot of research and development going into this product. So, with that being said, it's better. The executives over at Huawei said that they made sure a lot went into this phone, and that is better than the Samsung Galaxy Fold 2 in every way. Saying that the folding action of the Mate X2, which is what this phone's called, looks like a cross between the Samsung Fold 2 and the Moto Razr. From the Fold, we have the internal behind-the-screen gears for the hinge action. From the Razr, we have the hinge that results in a teardrop display fold when closed, instead of a hard crease. Just like the Razr, there are two fold-away support plates on the left and the right of the hinge, and they swing out of the way when the device closes up, allowing the phone to close without crushing the display. And Huawei says it closes without a gap. So you can see here the internal mechanism of, really what they're talking about, where the screen bends, but it doesn't crease. So, and I guess that's how you get that whole thing kind of working. And here are the supports for it. Now, one big downside to this being a Huawei device and not a Samsung device is that it won't have Samsung's ultra-thin glass display cover, saying that Samsung is the only company shipping a foldable display cover that is even slightly rigid to the touch, while everyone else uses crinkly, ripply plastic display covers that move around every time you touch it. Now, obviously, during the presentation with a live unit, a light reflection briefly rolled across the display, highlighting just how uneven the surface display was. And I think the image that they're looking at here would be this one right here. Clearly, there's a pretty well-defined bottom hinge and top hinge, or bottom part and top part, where the bottom part is going to have your power adapter, it's going to have your USB-C, the top part is going to have your speaker, and the bottom part is also going to have the microphone. So it's not two perfectly even sections, but they should fold into a rectangle. So it's almost like two triangles. Like the Moto Razr, there's no support over the top hinge area, so the flexible display sags over the hinge and forms a considerable trench running down the middle of the display. The light also emphasized all sorts of uneven ripples and distortions along what should be the flat side of the display. Which, by the way, I think is this image right here. If you're watching the video portion, they really showed off here how not completely flat this device is. It's very, and I think they mean this ridge right here in the middle, just like you would in a book. There's clearly a gap that falls in the middle. And while it is a seamless display, it is not supported by the very middle part is not supported. So there will be that kind of trench there, which $2,800, this technology is just not ready yet. If you're trying to market it for almost $3,000 and it still has these very basic problems, the technology is just not ready yet, and they're trying to rush into market. Now, with that being said, surviving 2020 is one thing, but Huawei's market share is still rapidly trending downward, and things only look more bleak heading into the future. There's already reports that the Huawei smartphone output will cut in half in 2021. Here's just one of what are probably many supply problems, saying that the Huawei high silicon Kirin 9000 system on chip built on TSMC's 5nm process, but TSMC halted shipments to Huawei in September 2020. According to the reports, Huawei ordered 15 million chips produced, but they were only able to deliver 8.8 million chips before the cutoff deadline. This supply needs to be stretched across the Mate 2, the flagship Mate 40 Pro, and probably one more launch this year. Keep in mind that the Mate X2 won't have any Google apps. Obviously, this will be HarmonyOS, which we covered. HarmonyOS, that was hilarious, where behind the scenes, it was very clearly just another fork of the Android operating system, which actually the article perfectly links to it right here. Huawei's HarmonyOS is really just an Android fork with all the Android kind of ripped out of it. So, yeah, we'll go ahead and throw this one up here, but it seems like the Huawei, the company, is really flailing. They don't have enough chips for all their phones. Even if they sold every one of their phones, they can only sell about half of what they wanted to. And overall, it's just not a good time to be Huawei. But hey, we'll see if they can come out the other side of this. So there's that article, and let's see, plenty of time. We have time for like one, maybe two more articles here. This was a big story today. This from Business Insider India, of all places, and over 30,000 Apple Macs have been infected with high stealth malware, and the company has no idea why. So what makes high stealth malware? Why is it there? We don't know. But here we go, saying that the malware named Silver Sparrow comes with a mechanism to self-destruct itself, a capability that's usually reserved for high stealth operations. So as soon as something scans it or takes a clip of it, to be used in anti-malware, those snippets, it knows to delete itself right away. Now, so far, though, there are no signs that the self-destruct feature has been used, raising the question of why the mechanism exists. Now, the lack of a final payload suggests that the malware may spring into action at any time. The malware has been found in 153 countries, with heavy detection in the US, UK, Canada, France, and Germany. Obviously, very developed countries here in the West. Yeah, in the West. Now, quote, though we haven't observed Silver Sparrow delivering additional malicious payloads yet, its forward-looking M1 chip compatibility, global reach, relatively high infection rate, and operational maturity suggest that Silver Sparrow is a reasonably serious threat. And that's coming from a cybersecurity firm, Red Canary. Silver Sparrow comes in two versions, one with the binary in mock object format compiled for the Intel x86-64 processors, and the other for the M1 chip, the new silicon from Apple. That didn't take long. Now, researchers have earlier warned that Apple's transition from Intel to its own silicon M1 chip may make it easy for hackers to introduce malware, saying, quote, to me, the most notable thing is that it was found on almost 30,000 Mac OS endpoints, saying that these are only endpoints the malwarebytes can see, and the number is likely way higher. It's actually pretty cool that they're able to do this. What the end result is going to be, we don't know. There are probably much bigger botnets and viruses that are much more effective, but the fact that this thing came out already, it has been seen in multiple countries across the world and on so many machines on hardware that is only like, a year old. Like Apple has only been offering its M1 chips in its computers for just about a year. And the fact that this thing is so pervasive is really incredible. So I'm wondering what it actually does and why it has a self-destruct feature that just did not trigger properly, because, hey, if it's already being scanned and it can be identified, then the self-destruct feature seems very useless. I'm wondering what it can actually do. Now, let's go ahead and continue on here. Let's do some fun things. Fun. Okay. How about this one? Rare. They make great video games, or at least they did. Now, this is obviously the company synonymous with the glory days of, the Nintendo 64. They made a lot of great games. And they have one that looks suspiciously like a Star Fox clone. But let's go and talk about it. saying that not only did its canceled remaster of GoldenEye for the Xbox 360 surface online recently, but its other unreleased game, Dinosaur Planet, is now out in the wild, saying that a build of the 3D action title, which was turned into Star Fox Adventures, so that explains that, for the GameCube, has been released by the video game preservationists at Forest of Illusion. For those eager to see it in action, they have a 20-minute gameplay video, which you can find here in the article. But this build predates the 2002 release of the Star Fox Adventures and originates from a disc that the preservationists bought from a collector in Sweden. They note that the game in its current state won't run perfectly on any emulator, but should work fine with flash carts. So before it became part of the Star Fox series at the behest of Nintendo producer Shigeru Miyamoto, Dinosaur Planet was destined to be one of the final releases for the N64. Instead, it wound up being Rare's only outing in the GameCube as shortly after it launched, it was snapped up by Microsoft for $375 million. And they have some screen caps here, what it was supposed to be, but nice little piece of video game history, and I'm seeing a lot more work and a lot more resources being put into video game preservation, and these societies popping up more and more, which is really great to see. You know, video game is a history all onto itself, and while people may not give it the same gravitas that they do the art world, it is art in its own way. And I think preserving the history in software form, which, let's face it, software is very prone to forgetting the old and, out with the old, in with the new. But yeah, that's the opposite of history. So there you go. You can see that there. Link to that in the show notes. And let's see, how about this one? SpaceX, just real quick. SpaceX's first private flights will put a 29-year-old American in orbit, saying that cancer survivor Haley Arsenault will be the youngest American ever in space. There you go. SpaceX recently announced that it will send 4 civilians into orbit aboard the Crew Dragon capsule, marking the first time that a crew without a single professional astronaut would fly into space. One of the private citizens will be Haley Arsenault, who at 29 years old will be the youngest ever American to fly into space. And that the trip came about thanks to Jared Isaacman, a billionaire who purchased the debut commercial astronaut rocket from SpaceX. It's crazy. I couldn't imagine having that kind of money. That is crazy money. But he'll get 1 Crew Dragon seat on the Inspiration 4 mission, but he also donated 3 others. One will go to the winner of a contest sponsored by his company, and another to a St. Jude Hospital sweepstakes winner. A 4th seat, however, was meant for a frontline St. Jude Hospital worker who symbolizes hope, and that person is Haley Arsenault. And saying that Arsenault is now a physician assistant at St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital in Memphis. And of course, 20 years ago, she was a patient with bone cancer. So as such, she'll be the first person with a prosthetic body part to go into space as well. It's pretty awesome. Normally, such a medical condition would disqualify aspiring astronauts. They still have a limp and occasional leg pain. However, she was cleared for the SpaceX flight and will serve as the crew's medical officer. And there you go. So, Isaacman, who flies a MiG-29 and other military jets for fun, again, crazy money, said that Haley is a perfect fit for the civilian spaceflight team. It's not all supposed to be about getting people excited to be astronauts someday, which is certainly cool. It's supposed to be about sending an inspiring message so that we can, of what we can accomplish here on Earth. So there you have it. The lineup of the first all-civilian manned crew to orbit has been announced. And this is, it's kind of buried in what SpaceX was normally supposed to be. That's more of what Virgin Galactic was supposed to be. But yeah, commercial, well, not even commercial, private spaceflight was one of their leading missions. That in the next 20 years, if you wanted to, for vacation, instead of spending, $15,000 or whatever on a round Europe tour and, what have you, you instead spend $5,000, $10,000 buying a ticket to orbit. And that was always the intention of SpaceX. And it's admittedly, the prices for admission are still at billionaire level, but maybe one day they won't be. And you too could purchase a flight to space, to orbit, for hopefully a reasonable amount of money. But for now, we'll settle with satellites and billionaires, and someday the rest of us will get to go to space. We'll see. So everyone, music in the background means that we are done. I want to thank you so much for tuning into the Computer America Show. And hey, we want to thank you so much for checking us out. Again, thank you to our guests, Cabin Systems North America or Liquid Avatar. You can, of course, check out the show notes, and we'll have a link there later on today. And everyone, thank you for tuning in to Computer America. Catch you next time, same place, Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern, here on IRN, as well as, ComputerAmerica.com. Catch you next time. Bye, everyone.